So I just finished binge reading the Shangri-La Frontier manga, and man, was it an amazing binge read. I've been loving the Shangri-La Frontier anime, and I just couldn't help myself but to try and read the manga. And I'm not gonna lie, it was definitely one of the best binges I've had in a long time. Nothing beats taking a series that you've been wanting to read for a while and just have a nice binge over the course of a few days, and Shangri-La Frontier just kept pulling me back in. And based off of what I know about how the series was created and how the series is going so far, with literally 207 chapters at the point of me recording this video, this series can potentially rival One Piece in terms of its chapter length far off in the future, and I am not exaggerating for it. Before I explain everything, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. And if this video does well, maybe I'll do more videos on Shangri-La Frontier, whether it be chapter reviews or just baseline discussion videos on the anime and manga, because man, after this binge read, I have just been wanting to make a boatload of Shangri-La Frontier content because it's just a hell of a lot of fun to really dive into. Now then, let's talk about some peak fiction. So Shangri-La Frontier, I think at this point many in the anime and manga community already have at least an idea of it. It's a story about this guy named Sunraku, who ends up, after playing multitudes of just trash, buggy video games for a long time, decides to play an actual good game with just the highest specs possible in an era of full dive video games, you know, like SAO and a bunch of other anime, manga, light novels that have similar premises. But what makes Shangri-La Frontier so great is not only the fact that obviously we have a very well thought out world for Sunraku to explore, but it's also a game that you wish was real. From everything from the game mechanics, how jobs are placed out, the quest, the world exploration, the combat, skills, how you do specific things for realistic battles, how everything just feels so realistic for how it is built from the ground up. The unique encounters, everything is thought out meticulously for how this game would work if it was an actual game with this type of potentially futuristic technology. And what makes it better is that the world itself inside the series is incredibly immersive, because as Sunraku plays, we end up wanting to discover the lore and world and story that is Shangri-La Frontier, the literal video game that he is playing. Because through this series, we have seen the AI NPCs essentially feel like actual living, breathing characters, because the whole point of the Shangri-La Frontier engine that it is dubbed, that was used to create Shangri-La Frontier from the company that made the game in this manga, essentially made everything as realistic as possible, from touch to sound to feeling. All the senses are mimicked basically perfectly, and the NPCs act like actual people with their own thought processes and own reasonings, even with the in-game rules, and you can interact with them like an actual human being would interact with another human being. This makes it feel less like a no-nonsense dumb video game that isn't really too important, you just have to care about the main characters only. No, we end up really getting to like the side characters that are the NPCs of this series, and how you interact with them, help them in the game develop for their own little missions or stories that they're supposed to be a part of, or even help them survive specific aspects of it. It ends up giving you a sense of fulfillment by seeing Sunraku or any of the other characters fulfill a quest or bond with these new NPC characters, as well as adding the additional risk factor that adds a bit of the realism to the Shangri-La Frontier universe, is that if these NPCs do end up dying, unlike the player characters, these NPCs are seemingly supposed to be gone forever, so that adds an additional extra stakes, especially if you end up feeling a sort of connection to these NPC characters. And speaking of characters, most of the main cast that we end up following is just incredibly fun. Obviously our main trio is Sunraku, Pencilgon, and Katsuo, but we end up seeing the other characters from like Rabitsu, which is the unique scenario that Sunraku unlocks, with Emil, Bilok, and the literal Yakuza boss, giant buff rabbit dude. We also have Saiger Zero, who is one of Sunraku's classmates IRL, who has just a massive crush on him, but is also like a real hardcore gamer in Shangri-La Frontier. And her interactions, every time she tries to do something to interact with Sunraku or spend time with them, is honestly adorable and hilarious. But my main interactions I really like are just the main trio of Katsuo, Sunraku, and Pencilgon. These three are unhinged as hell, but you could also buy that they're just best friends that love to screw with each other and also want to one-up each other, but will help out in a pinch. It's just a real nice, realistic dynamic of just online friends that just like to screw around in a game, but also do their best to actually do something eventful with a game and make the best of it and have fun. You buy their dynamic and you buy the history that they have by playing all these past trash games. You buy their interactions are legitimately genuine. But what makes this even more interesting and makes you excited for future events for Shangri-La Frontier is the fact that we have the introductions of, very early on, the 7 colossi, the 7 unique monsters, unique boss monsters that are set to advance the world story. And these are incredibly random encounters with specific side quests or conditions that will give you an encounter to them or to find where they are supposed to be encountered from. And through these, we have insanely powerful final bosses that our characters will have to fight. Sunraku ends up finding Lycagon, his colossi, and loses after fighting for as long as he can, using his knowledge of trash games to actually give him a bit of an advantage in Shangri-La Frontier, because if you have trained yourself to play the most buggy systems possible, you will have a much easier time adjusting to an actual well put together game, which gives him an advantage above a lot of other newer players and even some other players, specifically with his own unique playstyle that nobody would expect. But after getting the unique scenario, after fighting Lycagon, he gets a mark, gives him debuffs as well as bad conditions, but could also work for him as well. And so he gets the Rapitsu Vorpal Soul unique scenario or bonus scenario, as this is a side mission that helps advance the plot, but also helps Sunraku grow in the game by giving him a bit of an advantage over other players, but also expanding the rest of the world within Shangri-La Frontier. But what makes this manga even more interesting is that it's not just the Shangri-La Frontier video game in the manga that we are following the characters through. No, we also see them a bit in their personal lives, especially when it comes to playing other video games, because at its core, Shangri-La Frontier is a series that is a love letter to video games and gaming in general. So many times in season 1, season 2, and once we eventually get later down the road in the manga, we will see Sunraku and company explore other video games, whether it be just to blow off some steam or to take a break from Shangri-La Frontier, and eventually it could end up finding somebody that'll give them a lead for a unique scenario or something big for the Shangri-La Frontier video game, and they'll jump back in and fully explore that. A lot of things just really make this feel like the author loves games, and they have thought out almost every specific detail, even for the insignificant seemingly games, to fill out this wider universe that they are creating. So this gives nice breathing room arcs away from Shangri-La Frontier for us to explore other potential ideas. Heck, it'd be awesome if some of these were like actual spin-offs, like Nephilim Hollow or Galaxy Heroes, which is an entirely different video for me to fully explain either of those. But either way, with the love of gaming that is portrayed through this by portraying different types of video games, their mechanics and how they work, it shows an intimate knowledge and love for the craft, and I cannot help but respect the author so much for all the attention to detail that they put into this series, for everything. And it's also backed up by the manga's amazing artwork. Now, the background and character designs are all relatively great, but there are so many moments where the action scenes, and specifically the art for characters, and especially the monsters, and more specifically the 7 colossi that we have seen thus far, are just so intricately detailed, great shading and depth to them. Their designs are incredible. They pop out of the page. The artist for this manga is insanely talented, and I could not imagine anybody else drawing this manga. The artist Ryosuke Fuji, you have my eternal gratitude and respect for how much care and love you put into drawing this series. And Katarina, the author of Shangri-La Frontier, you are amazing, and I legitimately cannot wait to see what you come up next for Shangri-La Frontier. Which, honestly, now is a pretty good time to mention that Shangri-La Frontier's manga is actually based off of a web novel that Katarina is writing. And from what I have heard from the Shangri-La Frontier community that reads a web novel, this series is almost 900 chapters long, or even past 900 chapters in web novel format. And in the manga, we have only barely touched 200 chapters in the manga run. And it seems like we're not even halfway through what is out of the web novel, maybe a third or fourth of what is out already. And that is insane to think about, because from what I've heard, it's not even close to done in the web novel, as they will explore other video games throughout the series outside of Shangri-La Frontier to give a bit of a refresher and some variety to the series before jumping back into the game and even fighting the rest of the 7 Colossi and exploring more of Shangri-La Frontier. And this is what makes my comment at the beginning of the video so prevalent. With how well thought out Shangri-La Frontier is, with how much love there is for the craft of game design and even just gaming in general. This series can go on for a long time. From where we are right now, I don't feel surprised if this manga hits like 500 chapters and we barely make it through halfway through the web novel, from what I can understand. And by that point, the web novel might be well over 1,000 chapters long, and it might not even be finished. This series could reach One Piece levels of chapters. I do not exaggerate, because with how Shangri-La Frontier is, yes, they could basically advance the main plot of Shangri-La Frontier with the 7 Colossi and even further explore that entire fabricated world story. But with how many times we will end up exploring other video games, seeing what's going on with all the other characters, and just have the author just full on geek out over different video game concepts and ideas that they've had and done the research on how these could work. Shangri-La Frontier can go for a long time. Heck, even if they do finish the main story of Shangri-La Frontier, they can always just do like DLC arcs or expansion arcs or whatever for the game of Shangri-La Frontier, and we wouldn't question it, because we're already in it for the long haul. And even if they finish the main story, depending on how it goes, it would end up being insanely great to keep reading this series as often as you possibly can. And I honestly have full confidence that the author will make the series, if it is insanely long, just that much more enjoyable for the ride. I'm in this for a long haul for whenever the series ends. And as long as they keep the same artist, this is a match made in heaven. This could literally be the next One Piece / Hajime no Ippo length shonen manga that will be going on right now for an unseeable amount of time. But look, even with the manga and even the web novel, if you want to jump into the web novel, you also have the anime, which is currently wrapping up the 2nd season. And by the time the 2nd season ends, there will be roughly 80 chapters or so left to adapt, which will be season 3, which will adapt everything up to this point of me recording in the manga, which is incredible to see, because for all I know, season 3 is going to be end of 2026, in somewhere in 2026 or 2027, and we'll still have some material to explore for this series. And the anime adaptation is practically perfect. Presentation, animation, art style, direction, soundtracks and voice acting, dub and sub, everything just feels right. Shangri-La Frontier is legitimately a really great watch and a great read, and I highly recommend it to anybody that not just likes video games, but just likes to have a fun time in general. Now then, this is about the point of the video in any of my recommendations where I will give potential caveats, if there are any that I believe people might have, and that would be the more or less weird pacing for Shangri-La Frontier. What do I mean by this? Well, whenever it comes to any series, whether it be anime or manga, they usually fall into one of 3 separate categories. 1, they're really enjoyable if they're watched or read as they're coming out, as in a weekly basis or even monthly basis, depending on what the series is, or in a binge model where you binge a season or a group of chapters or arcs all in one sitting or multiple sittings without taking too much of a break. That way you have a lot more to get through, or you have a combination of both. Some sections of the story are great on a weekly read through or watch through, and some sections of the story will be good for a binge format. And Shangri-La Frontier is kind of a decent mix of the binge and weekly format. Some stuff in the manga and anime you will love to experience on a weekly basis, but there are others where you would prefer to binge them. And so at the end of the day, Shangri-La Frontier, while very good, it just kind of falls down to how you prefer to experience a new story series, whether it be anime, manga, light novels, movies, etc. It just depends on how you choose to consume it. Another caveat could honestly be, again, depending on the person, could also be the fact that we don't focus on Shangri-La Frontier, the video game of the main series. While I said, yes, exploring other games in this world adds more variety, and it actually makes a lot of things feel a lot more fresh, and then once you jump back into Shangri-La Frontier, it feels even better because we'll focus for a very long period of time on the main game of the franchise of the series. But to many, it would just end up feeling like sometimes needless filler. Granted, it does serve a purpose, whether it be for the characters or for in unexpected ways advance the plot, as even in real life, you could run into somebody that could help you with a video game that you had no idea was even a thing in a video game, in some other video game that you end up meeting in a chat room, or in real life, you see somebody at a game store or whatever. It just depends on if you prefer the slower build up to some arcs or moments and just enjoy the breaks, or you just want the story to just keep going constantly. again, it just comes down to person's preferences. Now, the comedy for Shangri-La Frontier I actually really do enjoy, but I can see people thinking like it can be kind of cringy or overused or done too much. And again, depends on the person. This last one is kind of a toss-up because there's a lot of gamer lingo that is explained in the show and presented. You do get brief line explanations when it's brought up for the first time, so somebody who isn't familiar with gaming will understand it. But again, if you're not a gamer or don't have any experience gaming, it could just feel like lazy or bland exposition for others. But that's really all I have to say about Shangri-La Frontier at the moment. I love this manga, I love the anime, and I cannot wait to see what comes up next. And if this video has convinced you in any way, shape, or form, experience it however you want. Watch the anime first, then jump into the manga afterwards, or just read the manga in general, or hey, do both. That all comes down to you. Or even go read the web novel if you really want to just dive very deep into Shangri-La Frontier. But let me know what you guys think. Are you going to give Shangri-La Frontier a try, or are you already an anime or manga enjoyer of Shangri-La Frontier, or if you read the web novel? Let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know if you want me to make more Shangri-La Frontier content in the future, like chapter reviews, explanations, or just baseline discussions of the series. And once more, if you haven't already, like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. Now, with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.